On December 3rd, 2023, the Venezuelan government will be hosting a referendum over what they describe as their historical claims to the Essequibo region. The waves of propaganda have been endless in the lead up to this event, and many people, whether neutral or on either side, seem to misunderstand the purpose and power of this event. I'm the Unspecialist. Let's talk about Venezuela's referendum on December 3rd. First, let's define a referendum. It is a direct vote by the electorate on a government proposal, government policy, or political issue. The electorate is asked a question or questions, and they simply have to vote yes or no to indicate whether they are for or against the question or questions posed to them. This is what the Venezuelan government plans to do on December 3rd when they ask 5 questions of their electorate. Before we get into those questions, however, I have a message for you today.
One medical mistake can permanently change your life or the life of someone you love. These mistakes are too common in America, causing injury and sometimes death. If you suspect that you were injured as a result of a medical mistake, call Washington Law Firm today. Don't lose your opportunity to get compensated. Don't wait. Book your free consultation with Washington Law Firm by calling 718-877-3100.
Or find us at 455 Utica Avenue, Brooklyn, New York. The questions are as follows. Number 1. Do you agree to reject by all means, in accordance with the law, the line fraudulently imposed by the Paris Arbitral Award of 1899, which seeks to dispossess us of our Guyana Essequibo? 2. Do you support the Geneva Agreement of 1966 as the only valid legal instrument to reach a practical and satisfactory solution for Venezuela and Guyana in relation to the dispute over the territory of the Guyana Essequibo? 3. Do you agree with Venezuela's historical position of not recognizing the jurisdiction of the International Court of Justice to resolve the territorial dispute over the Essequibo Guyana? 4. Do you agree to oppose by all means, in accordance with the law, Guyana's pretension to unilaterally dispose of a sea pending delimitation in an illegal manner and in violation of international law? 5. Do you agree with the creation of the state of Guyana Essequibo and the development of an accelerated plan for the integration of the current and future population of that territory, which includes, among others, the granting of Venezuelan citizenship and identity cards in accordance with the Geneva Agreement and international law, consequently incorporating said state in the map of the Venezuelan territory? The first thing you'll notice about the questions is that all of them are leading questions. The language is both possessive and suggestive. The language in the questions is clearly intended to appeal to emotion and influence the decisions of the readers, or in this case, the electorate. In psychology, this is referred to as priming. For example, in question 1, it's referred to as the line fraudulently imposed, which seeks to deprive us of our Guyana Essequibo. Or in question 2, the only valid legal instrument to reach a practical and satisfactory solution. Without context, the question itself is telling you or suggesting to you the answer. Or in question 4, unilaterally dispose of a sea pending delimitation illegally and in violation of international law. Once again, another question that without context is telling you the answer. And finally, in question 5, it speaks of granting citizenship, identity card, and including the territory in accordance with the Geneva Agreement and international law. A quick look at the Geneva Agreement will show that there are no such provisions in the document for anything that is included in question 5. However, once again, without context, the question is quite strongly suggesting what the answer should be. The questions all suggest and point to one answer: yes. If you agree with one, you automatically agree with all the rest, which is why all their promotions in the lead up to this event are filled with the message cinco veces sí, or 5 times yes, which indicates the government's desired outcome for this referendum. Which is why, in my opinion, this referendum serves more than just one purpose. Most official sources appear to agree that the Venezuelan government plans to use the referendum to test their support for the upcoming election. After all, the Essequibo region is a hot matter on every candidate's manifesto and something that's on the minds of every Venezuelan citizen. So it makes sense for the government to put it at the forefront as a matter of national priority and a priority issue for this particular government, especially if they plan to be re-elected. This leads into another obvious use of the referendum as a distraction from other issues in the country. Venezuela currently has lots of other humanitarian issues and potentially crises that require attention. However, the referendum serves as a perfect distraction and excuse for the government to put that to the back burner and use public funds on their propaganda campaign, which will effectively direct the people's passion and attention elsewhere. In other words, hungry bellies and thirsty mouths can't be angry at you when you've given them something else to be angry about in the meantime. The referendum also appears as a means for the Venezuelan government to justify whatever actions they take afterwards. It is very likely that the referendum will be used to represent the will and consent of the people to support whatever action the government takes after that event. They've already begun framing their actions as a defense of Venezuela's territorial integrity. However, with the referendum, the government can easily show the world that this is what our people voted for. And just as easily, they can show the people that this is what you wanted. Nothing short of a perversion of democracy. Finally, the referendum also serves as a historical marker. If the government gets its desired result, December 3rd will be remembered as the day the Venezuelan people unanimously rejected the ICJ and made a collective decision to claim the Essequibo region. The referendum not only shows who supports the motion within Venezuela's borders, but also outside it. The polarization will reveal which countries support Venezuela and which countries do not. If there are few allies, it creates the perfect conditions for the government to stoke more nationalist sentiment, some of which you can already see. Similar to a cult, if you can show people that you are isolated, there are no allies, and there are only enemies on the outside, it'll make them only more fanatic in support or defense of whatever message, mission, or cause you give them. In short, the referendum will trigger or maybe even reinforce a feedback loop that successive governments can feed on. Now for the big question. Should the Guyanese people be worried about this referendum? Here are the thoughts of a legal professional and the provisional announcement by the ICJ.
The question of how important is the Venezuelan referendum on December 3rd to the people of Ghana? I would say the referendum is not at all important to the people of Ghana. What is more important is the enforceability of the decision from that referendum. The people of Ghana should be more concerned as to what action, if any, the people of Venezuela can take after they decide on that referendum on December 3rd. Venezuela as a nation is sovereign, and because of the principle of sovereignty, Venezuelan can decide anything amongst its citizens. It can decide on any referendum. It can take any action that it wants to within its own borders. And international principles, international law tells us that no one can interfere with those decisions unless, of course, it involves clear violation of international laws. But as far as I know, a referendum, they're free to take any decision on that. And the people of Guyana can't tell them what they can do. Neither can the International Court of Justice tell them they cannot engage in that referendum. I think what can happen is if they decide on doing something adverse to the interests of people of Guyana, then is when the International Court of Justice or the international community can tell Venezuela, you cannot violate clear international principles or international agreement, because Venezuela did enter into an agreement, an arbitration agreement with Guyana in 1899, in which that border dispute was settled. But Venezuela has recently decided that that agreement is null and void, and now they want to come to a different decision. They need a different decision as it relates to the border dispute. This is why we have, or they had, the Geneva Convention of 1966, which permits the party to submit themselves to the United Nations. And the United Nations has been engaging in good office in trying to come to a resolution between the two parties as it relates to the agreement, the 1899 agreement, and Venezuela's decision to claim that the agreement is null and void. And as you know, that situation is now before the International Court of Justice. So now it would be incumbent on the people of Guyana to go before the International Court of Justice and ask for an injunction to prevent Venezuela from acting contrary to the agreement that is in place until the dispute between the parties is settled, until the court makes a decision as to whether or not that agreement was indeed null and void. So that's the proper forum, or that's the proper thing for Guyana to do, get an injunction to prevent them from taking any actions until the parties settle their dispute in a legal manner. Now, if Venezuela decides that it's going to act contrary to the International Court of Justice, and it's going to go try to invade the people of Guyana, that's where the people of Guyana need to be concerned as to how they're going to stop Venezuela. And I think if Venezuela does anything of the sort, it's going to find itself in a situation where Guyana is going to be supported by its ally, and they're going to have to face whatever consequences or penalties are meted out to them in the face of clear violation of an international agreement that has not yet been declared by a court to be null and void.
The court indicates the following provisional measures. 1, unanimously, pending a final decision in the case, the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela shall refrain from taking any action which would modify the situation that currently prevails in the territory in dispute, whereby the Cooperative Republic of Guyana administers and exercises control over that area. 2, unanimously, both parties shall refrain from any action which might aggravate or extend the dispute before the court or make it more difficult to resolve.
Now that you've heard a professional opinion and the ICJ's announcement, what are your thoughts about this referendum? What do you think are the implications for Guyana and the relations between the two countries in future? Do you think that this issue will continue into perpetuity? Is there the potential for violence or greater escalation as a result of this referendum? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Be sure to like and share the video to keep this conversation going. If you want to advertise with us, be sure to make contact via our Facebook page. If you'd like to employ my services specifically for voiceovers, advertisement as an MC or otherwise, you can also use the same means. The beautiful voice in the ad on this video and many more are also available to you. As always, thanks for watching.